Okay. Uh, we are on the corona pandemic. SCMP South China Morning Post. China scores biggest victory as 15th Asian nation signs world's biggest free trade deal. The regional comprehensive economic partnership accounts for about one third of the world's population and economy, but does not include the United States. Agreements pave the ways for lower tariffs, less red tape, and post-pandemic growth, observers say. Alright, let's see how it goes. Okay, let's follow up with the day, easier for us to read. It also comes amid questions over Washington's engagement in the region, with the US absent from the two of the most important trade groups that span the world's fastest growing region, the RCEP and the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, a rival trade bloc of 11 countries that went into effect in 2018. Soon after taking office in early 2017, United States President Donald Trump withdrew the United States from the Trans-Pacific Partnership (TPP), the predecessor to the CPTPP. On Sunday, leaders from China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and 10 members of the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations (ASEAN) witnessed the signing of the pact by their trade ministers by video conference. The RCEP encompasses close to one third of the world's population and global economy, and is projected to add US dollar 186 billion to the world economy through improved regional trade, according to New Zealand Minister for Trade and Export Growth, Damien O'Connor. The pact aims to liberalize trade and investment across the Asia-Pacific region by progressively lowering tariffs and cutting red tape, as well as laying out new rules on government procurement, the competition policy, and e-commerce. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang said the signing of the RCEP was a victory of multilateralism and free trade. The signing of RCEP is not only a landmark achievement of East Asian regional cooperation, but also a victory of multilateralism and free trade, and provides new impetus to the recovery of the world economic growth, Li said. The pact would take effect within the next 2 years after all countries ratify the agreement domestically, Indonesian Trade Minister Agus Suparmanto said last week. Without providing details, China's Ministry of Finance said on Sunday that the new pact included promises to eliminate tariffs within the group, including some immediately and others gradually over the decade. The ministry also said China and Japan achieved a historic breakthrough by reaching a bilateral tariff reduction arrangement on top of their multilateral trade pact, again without elaborating. The deal marks the first time the rival East Asian powers of China, Japan, and South Korea have agreed to enter into a joint free trade pact. Participants in the agreement include a mix of developing and poor economies, with special clauses of transitional arrangements, including technology transfer for the least developed nations such as Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia. The RCEP members also reaffirmed that they continue to highly value India's role in the RCEP and remain open to India's accessions down the road. New Delhi withdrew from negotiations late last year amid concerns over the country's trade deficit within China. Unlike the CPTPP, the RCEP does not cover labor and environmental standards. Regional trade analysts and officials have said that despite having limited provisions on services and investment, and lower standards, that the CPTPP, the China-backed trade grouping, would give much needed impetus to the pandemic-hit world economy that would further pull the economic center of gravity towards Asia, with China poised to take the lead in writing trade rules for the region. RCEP may prove to add the tonic Asia needs to recover from the pandemic-induced slump, said Stuart Tate, Asia Pacific Regional Head of Commercial Banking at HSBC. Intra-Asian trade, which is already larger than Asia's trade with North America and Europe combined, will continue to power global economic growth and pull the economic center of gravity towards Asia. ASEAN overtook the European Union as China's biggest trading partner in the first quarter of the year. The protracted trade war with the United States and Washington's economic decoupling threats have also pushed China to diversify its trade options and reduce reliance on the United States. Our priority has to be put on trade ties with Asia. Per Wei Wen, a former Chinese trade official and now senior researcher at the Center for China and Globalization, said at a forum in Beijing on Thursday. In the last 3 years of the trade war with the United States, we have witnessed a significant increase in trade with ASEAN, a moderate increase of trade with Europe, and a decline in trade with the United States. Trade with Asia and Europe now accounts for 70% of our overall trade. This will give us bargaining power when dealing with the United States. Wendy Cutler, who was acting deputy United States Trade Representative under US President Barack Obama and helped negotiate the TPP, called the signing of the RCEP another wake-up call for United States on trade. Beijing will likely claim victory upon the signing, said Cutler, Vice President of the Asia Society Policy Institute. It has been a promoter of the RCEP since day one. Then, as the United States retreated from the regional stage and pursued a trade policy based on unilateralism, Chinese leaders used the vacuum to portray Beijing as a reliable partner of choice for economic growth, trade, and investment. US President-elect Joe Biden has been non-committal on whether the US will try to join the CPTPP, the successor of the original TPP agreement that he and Obama promoted while in office previously. In the wake of the coronavirus pandemic, the Trump administration has floated the idea of restructuring global supply chains with countries like India, Australia, Japan, New Zealand, South Korea, and Vietnam, but stopped short of rallying them under a formal trade framework that could be an effective counterweight to China's growing influence. Tu Xingquan, president of the China Institute for WTO Studies at the Institute of International Business and Economics, said the United States' unilateral trade policy under Trump, combined with the pandemic, had brought Asia-Pacific economies closer. The conclusion of the RCEP has reflected the need for Asia-Pacific economies to unite after the US trade wars and unilateral trade policies. Ensuring stability in regional supply chain has also become much more important as the pandemic has brought disruptions to the global supply chains, too said. Of course, the CPTPP has higher standards than the RCEP, but it remains uncertain how much marginal benefit can be created by setting those standards, and it may take years for the impact to show, while the growth brought by the trade liberalizations policies in the RCEP will emerge much faster. Right. The agreement to lower tariffs and open up the services trade within the bloc does not include the United States and is viewed as China-led alternative to a now defunct Washington Trade Initiative. The RCEP solidifies China's broader regional geopolitical ambitions around the Belt and Road Initiative, said Alexander Capri, a trade expert at the National University of Singapore Business School, referring to Beijing's signature investment project that envisions Chinese infrastructures and influence spanning the globe. It's a sort of complementary element, he said. But many of the signatories are battling severe coronavirus outbreaks, and they are also hoping the RCEP will help mitigate the crippling economic cost of the illness. Indonesia recently tumbled into its first recession for 2 decades, while the Philippine economy shrunk by 11.5% year on year in the third quarter. COVID has reminded the region of why trade matters, and governments are more eager than ever to have positive economic growth, said Deborah Alms, Executive Director of the Asian Trade Center, a Singapore-based consultancy. RCEP can help deliver it, she said. India pulled out of the agreement last year over concerns about cheap Chinese goods entering the country was a notable absentee during Sunday's virtual signing. It can join at a later date if it chooses. Even without India, the deal covers 2.1 billion people, with RCEP's members accounting for about 30% of global GDP. Crucially, it should help shrink costs and make life easier for companies by letting them export products anywhere within the bloc without meeting separate requirements for each country. The agreement touches on intellectual property, but environmental protections and labor rights are not part of the pact. The deal is also seen as a way for China to draft the rules of trade in the region after years of US retreat under President Donald Trump, which have seen Washington pull out of the trade pact of its own, the Trans-Pacific Partnership (TPP). Though US multinationals will be able to benefit from the RCEP through subsidiaries within member countries, analysts say the deal might cause US President-elect Joe Biden to rethink Washington's engagement in the region. This could see the US eye the potential benefits of joining the TPP successors deal, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, said Rajiv Biswas, Asia Pacific Chief Economist at IHH Market. However, this is not expected to be an immediate priority issue given the considerable negative response to the PPP negotiations from many segments of the US electorate due to concerns about US job losses to Asian countries, he said.